Yeah, I'd be quite happy if ties died a death, personally. Although I don't have to wear one anymore, so it's more theoretical than anything.
Welcome, everybody, to Literary Lushes with your host, Megan
and Samantha.
And today we are reviewing the book All These Worlds by Dennis E. Taylor. And we're very excited because not only do we get to review a great book, and it's the third in the Bobiverse series, but we actually have Dennis on with us. So hello, Dennis.
Hey, Dennis.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us today.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, for the third time. We haven't scared him away yet.
Yeah.
You might after today.
Yeah, maybe today.
The promise of drinks keeps attracting me.
So the drink that we're drinking today, and now I feel guilty talking about it, Dennis, but Megan and I both really liked, of course, the end of the book where the Bobs are fighting the others, and we both really were entertained at the visual thought of 14 million human beings in a zero-G environment with globs of vomit floating around, little robots chasing them with vacuums, and everybody just having a really miserable time while they're zooming as fast as they can away from Earth. I guess maybe we just have a sick sense of humor, but we both thought it was funny.
Yeah, fun times.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to be there, but reading about it was funny. Like a funny visual. And so this drink is inspired by that, and it's called the Bellerophon's Journey. And I don't know if you could see, but we use the cocktail caviar, and it kind of floats with the champagne.
Some of mine are floating, some
yeah.
are floating, and some are not. So I think it's just a matter of some kind of physics that we're not understanding quite well.
Some of them have air bubbles in them, some don't, I think.
Some of them have been drinking.
Yeah, exactly. So, Dennis, we asked our listeners to submit questions to ask you. So one of the first questions that we had was by Amek Games on Twitter, and they asked, do you have a favorite Bob?
Not really. I think I identify with Bill the best, simply because that's what probably I would end up doing. But the Bob I like best is the one who's doing the most interesting thing at the time in any particular book.
Fair.
I'm a little, biased. I like Howard, and I like Howard and Bridget's story. But I'm like a romance. I know I'm like a romance nerd, so I was like, panicked the whole time that they were gonna die. The whole time, I was just waiting for it. Anyway,
well, Howard is fun. Howard's fun to write because there's so many places that you can go with him and Bridget.
I know. I feel like they can have their own mini story or like little mini adventures and stuff. I don't know.
Actually, that's coming up.
Ooh!
I got excited. I forgot that. I have to remember we're also in audio, so like a mini like quiet squeal. So for
some of the portions of some of the future books will be Howard and Bridget's adventures off planet, as it were.
Oh,
because they're going to get busy and not in the usual.
Not like the one squid blimp that attaches to their floating city prototype. Not like that.
No.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Okay,
that was
next
really
question.
Good.
I derailed again.
We have another question. And this is by Streaming Embroidery, also from Twitter. When will a Bob decide to join the next sci-fi convention now that society in the series is finding normalcy? And what would the Bob cosplay as?
And an even better question is, what would science fiction look like when you have interstellar travel?
Ooh.
For real.
I guess.
It's just fiction.
Yeah. Unless the Pavs are putting on a sci-fi convention because they're a little bit behind.
Yeah, that's true. Of course, you go to a PAV science fiction convention, you might get eaten.
Yeah.
But no, I've thought about that sometimes. Like, what happens to science fiction when reality catches up to it? Does Star Trek have science fiction?
That's a good question.
Maybe
Yeah.
they just have Renaissance fairs.
Yeah, they
Maybe.
go in the opposite direction. They go
Yeah.
back to the Middle Ages. Everybody's always trying to get away from where they are right now. Actually, maybe Bob will go to a Renaissance fair instead. Might make more sense than a science fiction convention.
So if Bob was going to go to a Renaissance fair, would he dress up as like pirates, steampunk, maybe just somebody from today's time, sexy cowboy maybe? I guess it depends on what Bob would go.
Yeah, if Bob's going, if Howard's going with Bridget, he has to obviously, be aware of what she wants to wear. But
They're dressing up cute. They're going to wear ties and all that good stuff.
Cute.
yeah, the only thing is, in Heaven's River, cosplay becomes a bit of a thing, which it wasn't in the first 3 books. So, not a huge thing, but it's there. So the whole thing of Renaissance fairs and stuff like that for the Bobs are probably not that big of a deal anymore. They'll probably go as Borg or something.
I'm down with that. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Here's a question that I think it was the most popular question submitted, and no surprise. The original person who submitted it was Clinton Anderson, again on Twitter, and it got a bunch of likes, retweets, and comments like, yes, please. So everybody wants to know, when is this going to be made into a Netflix/Prime/HBO series, please, with 3 question marks at the end?
I wish I had an answer. I really do. I mean, I would love it. Obviously, there's no downside for me. The option was renewed last September for another 18 months. So if they're willing to pay the extra money to renew it, they must have some hope that that they're going to complete, and because they had to pay the same amount again to do another 18-month renewal. There's got to be something going on. The trouble is, and my agents said this to me several times, with this whole Hollywood thing and the options, once they sign it and they've given you the money, you do not hear from them again until they have a deal. But something is developing. I don't know how much it's developing, but there's movement.
That's exciting.
We don't know if it'll be Netflix movement or Amazon Prime movement or a movie movement or a TV series, but something's going on. And it has to happen in the next 12 months or so. Otherwise, they have to renew the option again.
There you go.
Do they have the option of doing it like animated, or do you know if they plan on doing it like live action? To save money would be more animated, I think.
Yeah, animation is certainly one of the possibilities. I don't think that's where it's going, but that's just my personal feeling. I had some thought of Japan producing an anime version.
I mean, I would definitely watch an anime version.
Right.
All right. The next question comes from S. Bryant Lloyd, again on Twitter. And this one was more of just a statement than a question. And it was, talk about Chekhov's gun.
Well, Chekhov had several guns, but he didn't really use them. He was more of a pilot, but he did go looking for the nuclear vessels. I kid. Okay. Well, I don't know what he wants to know about Chekhov's gun. It's a rule of writing, but like most rules of writing, it's just a suggestion. I tend to ignore the Chekhov's gun rule. I stick extraneous items into my stories that don't actually do anything, and they're red herrings. Quite frankly, they're red herrings. They're to make you wonder, oh, is that going to come back and bite Bob in the butt? And it doesn't. That'll teach you.
And those are the best, because then you think you have it all figured out because the author leaves these little snippets along the way, and then you get to the end and you're like, I couldn't have been more wrong.
Yeah. The problem with sticking to writing rules like Chekhov's gun, which should probably explain for anybody who doesn't know what it is. Chekhov's gun is the idea that if an item appears in a story, it has to have some use or purpose or ultimate goal. So if there's a gun on the mantelpiece at the beginning of the story, somebody will get shot, or at least get it aimed at them. And I tend to stick things in there that don't do anything, right? The problem with Chekhov's gun is that once you get used to it, you can start watching TV shows or movies or reading books, and you can figure things out in the first 3 chapters, because if there's a gun there, someone's gonna get shot.
Next question, let's see. Oh boy, this one's a little bit of a long one. This is from Mir, again on Twitter. Where do you start writing a new book, in parentheses, the start, end, here and there, etc., close parentheses? And do you have a systematic approach to writing it? I love the style they are written in.
Yes, no, blue, 42. I do a little bit of planning. I'm not completely a discovery writer. I mean, I know I have talked to people who just sit down, fire up Word, put their hands on the keyboard and say, and begin.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and I'm very impressed by those kinds of people, but I'm not those kinds of people. I start with an idea, and it can be just a very small, thin idea. The idea for Singularity Trap was person gets turned into metal person. And that was the whole thing for Singularity Trap, and then everything grows from there. But once I have the basic concept, I try to build a very, very general storyline around it. Do a little bit of notes. I eventually get my notes down to about the level of 1 line per chapter. And then I pretty much ignore it because it just goes off on its own. The notes and everything are more psychological for me than anything, so I don't feel like I'm floundering. But once I finally get going, I just start writing, and I start from the beginning, and I write and I write and I write, and occasionally I will write a chapter out of order, but mostly I try to write sequentially.
So I know you said once you start writing, you usually just write it from start to finish. With the Bobaverse books, because you were so kind enough to put, dates and locations in the beginning of each of the chapters, and they do seem to skip around sometimes, not chronologically. Do you still write the Bobaverse books like from start to finish, or do you write it more in what would be the chronological order and then move things around?
I try to write each subplot separately. So that in the Bobaverse books, there were, whatever 5 or 6 at any one time threads interweaving with each other. With Heaven's River, I think there's 3. It's a lot more focused book. But I write each subplot on its own, and then I have to figure out how to break them up to interweave them in the book. The subplots in the trilogy, the dates did jump all over the place because all these things were happening at literally different times. Some things were much farther in the future than others. The only thing I had to do was make sure that I didn't have Bill reacting to something before it happened. So I had, there was some editing there, and there were a few chapters where it turned out that, Bill was talking about something that he was going to discover 3 chapters later, and I had to move that around. But the Bobaverse trilogy was ordered for basically for literary value. I mean, I ordered it in the way I ordered it because it worked the best for story arc and suspense and stuff like that.
All right, we have another question.
Jeez, we had a few, didn't we?
We got a lot. Dennis is very popular. I'd like to think it was us, but it was definitely Dennis.
Yeah.
We had really nothing to do with it. This one is from Jason H. Bartlett. And his question is, how do mover plates work? And then he also had a comment. Please always hire Ray Porter to perform the audible publications. His interpretation of the character voices are the absolute best.
If Audible ever tells me that Ray Porter isn't available right now, I will say, I'll wait. So that's the second question. Now, what was the first question on there?
The first question was, how do mover plates work? Yeah. Magic.
Absolutely. Magic.
It's
Those are MacGuffins.
I mean, if we knew, we'd have them, right?
Right. The only thing that's ever specified is that in book 1, the asteroids were being moved by a type of surge drive that was very low intensity, very wide field, so that they could pick up the asteroid, essentially. I would imagine mover plates would be the same thing. Instead of being very tightly focused on the ship that they're in, they are like a magnetic field, very, very all-encompassing, with good range. But because of that, you need a lot of them to move a planet.
I mean, to be fair, Star Trek had flip phones before those were a thing. So we put things out in the universe and then we figure out how to make it work.
Yeah. What a great idea. Let's invent that.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, so Jason H. Bartlett, you got some homework, man. Start working on the science behind mover plates.
Yeah. If you build it, we will come.
Exactly. Yeah. All right, we have 2 more questions. This one is from Balesy, again from Twitter. Which Bob do you personally most identify with, and why is it Homer?
Well, I don't know. Homer was fun. Homer was definitely fun, but I'm a little bit more of a stick in the mud than that. I'm the person who stays home on a Friday night, watch a little TV, read a book, and then go to bed early.
Sounds like a wonderful night.
I was like, and talking to people on podcasts. I mean,
yeah. I mean, it works. It works for me, you know. Homer's a little bit more of a partier, I think.
At least in the beginning, he was.
Yeah, at least in the beginning. I mean, he was fun to write. I felt very bad killing him off.
Spoiler.
Well,
I hope you're not watching this until you've gotten to the 3rd book anyways.
Yeah. Yeah. Allegedly killing him off, let's say that.
Yeah.
But no, I stick with Bill.
Bill.
For my favorite character. Yeah.
I like Bill. He is very well-rounded, level-headed. And boy, does he have patience. Because when he was talking about building the planet literally from the ground up, and, you know, they have forever. But I was like, I don't know if I could sit there for millennia and watch moss grow.
Yeah, it's like watching moss grow. Strangely.
Yeah. Didn't he say that line? Now I'm trying to find it. I knew I should have marked it. About being like God. He's like, and then I rested or something like that.
Oh, I think so.
There was something, and he said Garfield would have.
Oh, here it was. I looked down upon Ragnarok, and it was good. I chuckled to myself, glad that I hadn't said that out loud. Never let me live it down. I had to stop because I was laughing so hard. Sorry. That's what, when you said that, it just made me laugh. Yeah. No funny. Like.
Well, the terraforming fun continues in Heaven's River. Riker's gotten into terraforming Valhalla to the extent that it needs it. And Bill has made great progress on Ragnarok. He's got rabbits now. Rabbits are kind of a universal.
Yeah. And they're easy to build up the population.
I was about to say that. So. I should have.
Yeah. You throw a couple of rabbits down and you jump back.
Woo! Party. Yeah.
I'm glad you found a more gentle way of saying that. I was like, yeah, would not have been as clean.
Getting busy.
Getting busy, exactly. All right, we have our last listener question or reader question. This one is from Colby Kelly on Twitter. When do we get to see an artist rendition of Bridget in her green dress asking for a friend?
With her red hair.
Yeah.
Well, maybe when I find somebody who's very artistic and willing to take it on. Yeah, there is no real life Bridget. My brother-in-law thinks that I based her on my wife, and no.
No.
They do both have red hair, but you know, there's only so many colors of hair. Yeah, I don't know. There are a couple of people on the Fans of the Bobiverse Facebook group who are artists. Maybe I'll bring it up. Maybe somebody will come up with something.
I think Colby would be very titillated if that happened.
His friend.
His friend.
Yeah. That would be, I am dying to see what this green dress looked like, to see if it was like, you know, what kind of cut it was, and just, I don't know. I'm very excited to see this green dress.
Maybe like Jessica Rabbit.
Sadly, I would have to take a lot of input from others on that because I'm not really a dress designer.
Like, it covers what it needs to cover and doesn't cover what it shouldn't cover.
That's right. That's right. And other than that, green dress just about stretches my limits.
But then the reader can just fill it in with
Yes.
imagination. Just whatever that green dress looks like.
Right, because what I think would probably be like absolutely gorgeous, Sam might have a different idea of what would be, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Because I also remember going to a wedding and she needs to be a little bit more modest, not too
boring. Which I'm just throwing it out there into the universe. A graphic novel of the Bobiverse series would be pretty cool.
It would, and I've thought about ways to maybe produce that, but
Yeah, one thing at a time.
yeah,
Yeah,
there's only so many hours in the day,
exactly.
Ain't that?
and I'm already sleeping through enough of them.
Same. I just want to say I love the trilogy, obviously. I liked how in the end you got to see Henry again, and he's in a better headspace.
Yeah.
And I like his endeavor to try to sail around every ocean and sea. And then I love Bridget's plan of trying to catalog every life form. And I did feel a little bit jealous at the thought of her being able to do something like that, because that seemed like a really cool life goal, especially when you have eternity to do so.
I was very excited that Bridget changed her mind in the end. I was.
Yeah. Well, that I wasn't absolutely sure when I wrote that I was going to have her change her mind, but then once I started to think about the whole court case and kids getting up in arms and stuff like that, it felt like, yeah, that would make a good subplot. And of course, she has to get replicated after that.
And
Good.
I was gonna say, as an attorney, I really like the court battle, because I'm like, I could totally see this being a thing in the future if being a replicant was possible. Like, I could see this all day long. People getting all up in arms about their loved ones wanting to be scanned and turned into an AI. So I found that very fascinating.
Yeah. Well, there are so many legal ramifications to that too. What if the decedent leaves their money to their replicant copy? You know, leaving the heirs completely out of the loop. That's gonna create some tension.
Yeah, I would say so.
Huh.
Because you're basically just leaving it to yourself in another form.
Yeah. Yeah. In Ireland, they have a phrase. Is it walking in dead men's shoes or living in dead men's shoes? But it refers to people who are just waiting for their rich relative to die so that they can inherit the money and live a lifestyle kind of thing.
So,
Oh boy.
Yeah. So the Irish have a phrase for just about friggin' everything. It's quite interesting. But So you spend your life living in dead man's shoes, and all of a sudden the guy dies and he leaves the money to himself, and you're left out in the cold. Well, you're going to be irate.
I mean, it's a good life lesson for you, though.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, what kind of money would an AI need?
Well, if you're going to be like Howard and Bridget living in an apartment with kids.
I guess. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
well,
Yeah, you made a point. Okay.
Yeah, well, as the Mannies become more and more important, living in real becomes more and more important, and you got to have money to live in real, even if you're an android.
She get a pass.
She get a pass.
I feel like they can kill you with just like, you know, twisting their hand around your neck. Like, I mean, like, you know, it'd be nothing to them. I don't know. I'm just saying. If
we know Megan's going to be that angry replicant who's like, you expect me to pay for this?
Like, I am your God.
Well, the other thing is too, if you want to buy into a post-life arcology, like a replicant farm, if you want to call it that, they want money, right? Okay. So it's like going to live in a retirement home. You pay them a certain amount per month, and they give you a commensurate amount of computer processing power.
So Megan and I were talking before we started recording, Dennis, about how we liked how so many of the Bobs found their own reasons to use the androids in whatever form, whether it be animal or humanoid. And the progression of it. And so like how Howard uses it for love and human interaction. Bill and Garfield were using it for research and time killers to just race around the planet. You know, Marcus originally used it to get involved in a rebellion. And then Bob originally used it to become part of the Deltans and, you know, for protection. Was there any inspiration for that? Did it come organically? Did you have specific ideas for each Bob, or?
The Mannies were the Mannies were organic. I think they're probably something that would be inevitable in that circumstance. So it would have been a huge hole in the story if I'd completely ignored them. But once I started writing about them, it just the possibilities just developed. Plus, you know, what would a couple of nerds do with the idea of Mannies if they had a lot of time and an infinite budget?
I feel like they would
make a Bullwinkle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Rocky.
Yeah. That still makes me laugh.
I did want to know, with Bridget, she already had a VR like body, which was very different than Bob in his beginning, and then everybody else that was before Bob, they like were just a ship. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering, is because she had a virtual reality body, do you think that's why she was able to accept it better, or because she knew Bob and knew what was coming before she?
Probably all of the above. Okay. The lack of a body gets to you eventually, but I mean, it's not like you wake up and, oh my God, I don't have a body, eeks, you know, thud. Right. But yeah, she came into being in the VR and she was, you know, her younger self. So that would have made it a lot easier. And knowing Howard and him being there when she woke up would have made it a lot easier, certainly.
Yeah, I noticed she did it a lot easier than most. Like she just like seemed, I mean, she obviously had her moments, but it still seemed pretty. Yeah, but even he was like, okay, so we're gonna start from the beginning, and like, so you obviously knew he was helping her through it, but it was.
Yeah. Well, plus she had a lot of time to think about it. I mean, the whole point of their storyline was that, you know, she was initially not going to do it, and then she had time to think about what it meant, you know, to die naturally or to be replicated. So she'd already gone through the thing mentally before she died,
including the effect it would have on her family. And I noticed that family played a huge part in this book, even with Uncle Will and him saying goodbye to his family, and Bob saying goodbye to the Deltons. Yep. Yeah, Howard and Bridget and Bridget's kids, and then when he becomes a daddy and they adopt the orphans. So I like that there is dynamic family aspect to this book with all the different Bobs and how they interpret family.
Yeah. That was a big thing with Bob from book one.
Yeah, with his sister.
Yep.
Although it did break my heart a little bit when Bridget's oldest daughter, Rosie, was just so hard-headed that she wanted absolutely nothing.
Bitch is the word that came to my mind.
Yeah, but family.
Yeah.
Can't live with them, can't kill them.
My heart for Bridget. But yeah.
And I liked how Jacques, who was in charge of the paths, I forget the leader's name. She called him Jock.
Yeah.
And he does the Vulcan salute, and then when they say goodbye, she does it back to him. And I'm like, that's so cruel, teaching the society that's like, something common, I guess.
You have to get a chuckle out of that too when you're back up in your shuttle, like.
Yeah.
I mean, I do the same thing, probably. So,
Well, the Pav do continue to make an appearance in Heaven's River. Not huge, but they're there and they're a factor. And let's just say relationships with the humans have soured a bit.
Shocking.
It's a source of tension.
Can't believe it.
So speaking of Heaven's River, Dennis, do we have a release date for that?
September 24th for the audio.
Very cool.
January 24th for the text versions.
So what is it like listening to someone read your words?
We listened to Singularity Trap on the way home from visiting my parents a year or two ago. And when the end credits rolled, if you want to call it that, when the book finished, my wife actually cried a little bit.
Oh.
That was the first point where she really had heard my work being on an audiobook. And that was pretty cool.
So 500 Bobs.
500. Sorry, the number's gotten a little bit bigger since then.
Do they all have names in your mind?
They all have names, but I don't know most of them.
Okay. I was like, because when I saw that number, I'm like, oh my gosh, does he sit there and Google?
Name 500 Bobs? No.
Okay. All right. Because I was going to say that would be impressive. If you have like a Bob family tree of sorts with just 500 Bobs.
Also excessively anal.
I thoroughly enjoy them. I cannot wait to get my ears on Heaven's River, since it'll be a little bit longer before I can get my hands on a copy.
Yeah.
But I'm really looking forward to that. And we want to thank you, Dennis, to hang out with us. We really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. And joining us for a third time.
Yeah.
Right. Thanks for having me.
So we want to thank Dennis again for agreeing to come on to our podcast for the third time and to do it visually, because that could be terrifying for anybody.
Yes.
And if you are a patron supporter, you can see as well as hear our uncut interview with Dennis. So be sure to check that out on Patreon if you are a patron. For our Conscious Corners, because Megan and I's birthdays are only several days apart, and because we are nerds, our Conscious Corner today is leveling up on our birthdays.
Yes, so we're leveling up. So how this came about was someone saying, I read it somewhere. It's like, if you don't want to sound like you're 33 years old, which is what I'm turning.
Me too.
If you don't want to sound like 33 years old, it doesn't sound as cool. But if you say, I'm going to be level 33, it sounds better as you get older, because everybody knows the higher the number level you're at, the cooler you are. So that's how we came about we're not turning 33 years old, we're leveling up to level 33.
We are going to be doing for our birthdays a birthday gift exchange video for our patrons. So that is it for our Conscious Corner. We want to wish all of the June and July birthday babies a happy, sexy birthday in times of quarantine. And don't do anything stupid on your birthday.
You guys definitely want to join us as a Patreon a patron on Patreon, because we do have awesome videos and visuals to go along with all the wonderfulness that we're doing. So $2 a month at starting point.
Yeah, hell yeah. And we have so many good ideas for patron only videos that I'm really excited. We're gonna do a Lushes workout video. There's a pillow fight in our future.
Yes.
Megan is settled into her new house, and when she gets her sweet outdoor bar set up, there's gonna be the shenanigans.
Yes.
So so if you're not supporting us on Patreon, really, what are you doing with your lives? Because
$2 a month, it's starting. I mean, it goes up, and you get different things as you pay more. But really, let's
help us help you. I mean, come on.
Help us get better.
Please help us. More. Angela Roque is trying so hard to make us better. She can't do it alone. It takes an army. It takes a village, really. So please help. We'd like to thank our current patrons on Patreon. So we have Angela Roque, author of the Lana Harvey series. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We also have Ray and Mike, our respective significant others. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts, and you better continue to support us, or else. We also have my mother, Linda. Thank you again for supporting your daughter in her podcast endeavor. And we also have our dear friend, Julie. Thank you, Julie, for supporting us as well. We really appreciate it, even if you haven't watched your own episode yet.
She hasn't?
I don't think so.
That's awesome.
So our next episode, I wrote it down, and where did I write it? Here we go.
Right?
Let me try again. Our next episode is going to go up July 9th, and that is going to be The Big Finish by Brooke Fossey. I don't believe this one is sci-fi fantasy, but it was recommended to us by one of our listeners. It was recommended by Leslie Karen Lutz. And so we take every suggestion and recommendation that our listeners send in, and we add them to our reading list. And so thank you, Leslie, for recommending this. You want to see me make this drink disappear?
I know, right? It's like, I already made it disappear. There's nothing in it. I drank it all.
Ta-da!
We need help.
Please send help.
Like we like to say, stay lively with your libations.